There are a lot of things in Naruto that make it absolutely iconic. Ninjutsu, Genjutsu, Taijutsu, all the fireballs, the Sage Mode, the Senjutsu, Susanoo's, Chidori's iconic character deaths. But genuinely, when you think about Naruto, you probably think of one of two things. One would probably be the Naruto run because of how pervasive and memey it is on the interwebs. But the second and definitely much more important thing you would think of when thinking about Naruto, hand seals. See, throughout the entirety of Naruto's run, it's hard to identify something more important or recognizable than hand seals. In the beginning days of Naruto, we were served to battles of Kakashi using over 100 hand seals to summon something like a water dragon. However, as time progressed, we got less and less of these hand seals, where it got to the point that we feel as though hand seals aren't even really used anymore, as the majority of the jutsus we're seeing pulled off nowadays no longer require them. So why did this happen? Why have hand seals disappeared? What did the certain hand seals mean to begin with? Why did we used to need so many? Is it lazy animating, or is it characters getting stronger? And most importantly, what was going on with hand seals? What were they actually doing? Well, today we're gonna answer all those questions and more, because today we're talking hand seals explained. And while that might sound like a boring topic, there's some information in here you're gonna wanna know. Because honestly, now that I've started reading about it, there's some stuff in here even I wasn't aware of. But before we get to answering any question, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you love the idea of me talking about anime, then you're gonna love my other channel, The Weeb Commander, where I talk about all anime that aren't Naruto or Boruto. Been on a big Hell's Paradise kick recently. And if you're feeling extra generous, go ahead and follow my anime podcast, Otaku's Anonymous, where me and Danny Mata break down everything that happened in anime this week. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So seals, also known as hand seals, where were they created? What do they do? Why have they disappeared? Well, in order to get to these kinds of questions, we're gonna have to start this video off in the way that we tend to start these videos off, at the beginning. See, well, unfortunately, a lot of the information we know about hand seals does come from filler or filler adjacent content. Some information is better than no information. So if we're going all the way back to the beginning of hand seals, we saw in a filler episode that they were created by Indra Otsutsuki, and Indra created them in order to aid people into summoning a certain technique. Those secret techniques usually pertaining to either ninjutsu or genjutsu. Now, the reason that these hand seals were needed is because creating a certain ninjutsu or genjutsu requires molding your chakra in a certain way. You have to mold your chakra differently to create a great fireball than you do a water dragon. You can't just think water dragon and have a water dragon appear in front of you. You have to create the water dragon out of your molded chakra. And in that capacity, think of hand seals as a set of IKEA instructions. The more complicated the jutsu, the more steps there is. In every single step you do, you get one step closer to creating your genjutsu or ninjutsu or other secret art construct. Now, unfortunately, unlike IKEA instructions, none of this is written down. I mean, it might be written down somewhere, but we've never seen it. Creating a ninjutsu or a genjutsu or anything outside of taijutsu requires memorizing the hand seals needed to pull it off. However, unfortunately, the amount of hand seals necessary to pull off a jutsu is actually dependent on the person launching the jutsu. You see, well, technically every single jutsu has a long, convoluted list of hand seals you have to do in order to pull it off. There are cheat codes or shortcuts that become more and more accessible to those with higher and higher skill. A great example of this is when Kakashi is copying Zabuza's hand seals in order to match his water dragon. Over the course of that incredibly cool scene, they both hit 44 separate hand seals. 44 hand seals to pull off one ninjutsu. This is the full instruction for creating the water dragon jutsu. However, just like if you're too smart for second grade, you get to skip a couple of grades. When you become a ninjutsu specialist, or you just use a certain ninjutsu a whole lot, you get to cut down on the amount of hand seals. So let's say I use the water dragon jutsu every single day. Eventually, I'll begin chipping away at that 44 hand seal number. Eventually, I'll get to 40 and 35 and 25 and 15 and 10 until I can get it down to 1. Yes, that's right. With a sufficient amount of skill, you can reduce any ninjutsu or genjutsu you cast down to 1 hand seal. The evidence of this is Tobirama, as Tobirama was also known as one of the greatest water ninjutsu specialists of all time, which is most largely evidenced by the fact that he was able to use water dragon jutsu with one hand seal. Now, the best metaphor I can think of for this is thinking about water dragon jutsu as a hill. Well, technically the easiest route to get up a hill is a bunch of tiny little steps. If you have sufficiently strong legs, you can just jump to the top of the hill. Now, this is harder and requires a lot more practice and strength. But should you happen to have those extraordinary qualities, you can just do it. This means in one hand seal, Tobirama is able to mold and weave all of the chakra he needs to create a water dragon. And if you think that's crazy, what if I told you some people don't even need one? Now, complicated ninjutsu like water dragon or fireball technique are always going to require at least one hand seal. These are the ninjutsu that happen away from your body. However, ninjutsu that are more or less just coating your body in some kind of chakra sometimes don't even require one hand seal. Two good examples of this would be the Rasengan and Chidori. See, in the beginning days of Sasuke learning Chidori, he did have to use hand seals. However, by the time Sasuke reached the war arc, he no longer had to weave any hand seals at all. And while obviously this is a testament to the mastery he now has over Chidori, it's also because, well, Chidori is just kind of a Rasengan, as a Chidori is just coating your hand in lightning chakra, which is in essence just shifting your chakra into one part of your body, like putting chakra on the bottom of your feet so you can walk on water. Obviously, the Rasengan and the Chidori are a much more complicated version of walking on water, as they require molding the chakra outside of your body, which is why Rock Lee can walk on water but not use ninjutsu. But this means that Sasuke has learned to coat his hand in lightning chakra without a singular hand seal, meaning he's so familiar with the feel and the process of it that he can just skip to the conclusion, which, if we're taking it back to the hill metaphor, isn't like jumping to the top of the hill, it's like just being on top of the hill. But these techniques that are just molding of chakra are inherently simpler to pull off than more complicated things. On top of this, there's actually a real benefit to using the least amount of hand seals possible. Because let's say hypothetically you're coming up against somebody who either has a Sharingan or has definitely done their homework. If they read your hand seals, they can know what you're doing. Let's say you're trying to launch the Water Dragon Jutsu. If you're inputting all 44 hand seals, anybody who knows the code that you have to enter to pull off Water Dragon Jutsu is gonna know what you're doing. However, if you're able to invoke the Water Dragon Jutsu with just one hand seal, not only is it going to be significantly faster, but whoever is trying to read your hand seals simply won't be able to. However, it was people's lack of control over their own hand seals which allowed Kakashi to become the copy ninja, because Kakashi, with the extrasensory perception of his Sharingan, was able to copy the moves of a hand seal and match the techniques. And since he apparently has one of the best memories in the history of anime, any technique he saw with his Sharingan he was able to use later on in his life. Which, like, I understand you're able to read somebody's hand seals better with the Sharingan, but remembering all of that for years, insane. But reducing the amount of hand seals you need to do to pull off a jutsu goes even further than reducing the sheer amount of hand seals. See, most, if not all, hand seals are done with two hands, and the usage of two hands is actually important. However, some ninja with exceptional chakra control have been shown to be able to use hand seals with one hand, and this is actually exceedingly rare and hard to do. Molding chakra is like any complicated task. It's easier to do with two hands, but it probably is possible to do with one. But how exceedingly rare is being able to mold chakra through the use of hand seals only using one hand? Well, we've only ever seen 8 people do it, and 4 of those people are Minato, Naruto, Sasuke, and Kawaki. In fact, it's so rare to be able to weave hand seals with one hand that people usually elect to use other ninjas' hands to help. I'm sure the majority of you already knew this because some of the most iconic moments in Naruto revolve around somebody using somebody else's hand to weave a hand seal. But if you're exceedingly skilled in hand holding and being able to manipulate somebody else's hand into hand seals, their hand operates just like yours. Now, it's unclear as to whether or not you're taking their chakra as they help you mold chakra for a ninjutsu, or if you're just using their hand as a conduit for concentration. Regardless, we've seen this happen a multitude of times, in both voluntary and involuntary circumstances. The only real voluntary circumstance we've ever seen this in is when Naruto and Sasuke use each other's hands to dispel infinite Tsukiyomi. There's way more involuntary circumstances, and these moments all look eerily similar. It looks like Sasuke and Obito and Kawaki all using somebody else's hand to pull off a great fireball technique. And god damn it, will it never get old. But the rarest thing as it pertains to hand seals is techniques that simply don't require them. Not you eliminated the need through hard work, simply they just never required hand seals in the first place. And these techniques are usually created to complement a speed blitzy type of battle. It's actually theorized that this is the reason that Minato created the Rasengan in the first place, as Minato wanted the technique that he could simply spawn in his hand when he appeared behind somebody without weaving hand seals. And with the creation of the Rasengan, that is exactly what he got. But what are these hand seals that everybody seems to want to get rid of? Well, it's largely believed there's only 12. There's not. There's way more than 12. See, the reason that everybody believes there's only 12 hand signs is because the 12 basic hand signs are all based off the 12 zodiacs, as in the Chinese zodiac. There is monkey, there is dragon, there is rat, there is bird, there is snake, my personal favorite. It's so easy. There is ox. There's dog. This one's also easy. Horse. Honestly, I just walk around and lock this one out. It's kind of fun putting my fingers together. Probably the most iconic, tiger. This one's hard to do with a fresh tattoo. Boar. Another iconic one that gets mixed up with tiger, ram, and hare. Now, while these hand seals are used in any kind of ninjutsu and genjutsu, these hand seals are usually associated with different types of techniques. Rat hand seal is usually associated with the Nara shadow technique. Tiger is usually associated with fire and earth releases. Snake is usually associated with earth, lightning, and wood release. Bird, also known as my least favorite to do, is usually associated with wind release. And dog is usually associated with water release. But these 12 hand seals are far from the end. Outside of the 12 zodiacs, there's things like the seal of confrontation. Now, this is the seal you can see Hashirama and Madara weaving in the Valley of the End. It is the symbol of combat and a universally agreed upon sign of two shinobi entering into battle. That is to say, it's a bit like the shinobi world equivalent of touching gloves. However, this sign does a lot more than just that, because a lot of shinobi use this sign to weave their own chakra and concentrate it before a battle, which is why in video games like Ultimate Storm, when you try and charge your chakra, you do the seal of confrontation. However, the seal of confrontation can be used for more than just charging your own chakra, as we've also seen it have actual usage in terms of creating jutsu, the best examples of which being Deidara Sai in Inojin. Deidara uses the seal of confrontation to explode his exploding clay. The seal of confirmation, which is usually a symbol to the beginning of combat, is used by Deidara to explode his artwork, or I guess create his artwork. On the other side of the spectrum, we have Sai and Inojin, who use the seal of confirmation to make their drawings come to life. And without the seal of confirmation, we don't know if their Super Beast scroll would actually be able to pop off, well, the scroll. So you could say that the seal of confrontation acts as a pseudo 13th hand sign. However, opposing the seal of confrontation is the seal of reconciliation. Now, the seal of reconciliation is not used in combat. And this is because the seal of reconciliation is supposed to symbolize that two allies are done sparring. That is to say, this technique is supposed to symbolize that the two people that have battled now forgive each other for what happened during their sparring battle. And this technique looks like the index and middle finger of two people coming together and bending over each other. This sign holds a massive level of importance in the Naruto universe, as not only did Hashirama and Madara's statues at the Valley of the End finally do their seal of reconciliation, but both Naruto and Sasuke, after they blew each other's arms off, also did their sign of reconciliation. It's essentially the shinobi world's version of a handshake after a match. It symbolizes that the fight is over and that you're cool, but we ain't done yet. As probably the most common seal that we see in Naruto doesn't even fall under the category of the 12 zodiacs, because arguably the most common seal that we see in Naruto, the clone seal. Now, anytime somebody wants to use the shadow clone or multi-shadow clone jutsu, they have to do this seal. Now, the seal is used for jutsus outside of the shadow clone jutsu, but only for one, and it's kind of confusing as to why. As water release, water shark bullet technique also requires usage of the clone seal, which is odd. Is that technically a clone of Kisame? I guess we'll never know. I mean, I guess Kisame is definitely shark adjacent, so creating a shark out of water is kind of like him making a clone. I actually think I kind of just cracked the code on that. However, what happens if hypothetically you lose an arm? Like, oh, I don't know, Naruto. Well, the reason that Naruto is on the list of people who can weave a jutsu with one hand is because of what happened to Kakashi Hiden, lightning in the night sky. Oh, I'm sorry, lightning in the icy sky. See, before Naruto gets his prosthetic arm, he has to learn how to create clones with only one hand. It took Naruto a couple months, if not a year or so, to get a prosthetic arm, as science coming to Konoha was something that didn't really happen until after the 4th Great Shinobi World War, and really didn't happen until Kakashi finally took his leadership role as the 6th Hokage. So instead of using two hands to create a cross like this, Naruto, and I can't even really do this because this part of my finger won't even unbend, but created a cross with his index finger and middle finger. Can you guys do this? Can you? Ow! Outside of this, there are also hand movements instrumental in the usage of ninjutsu or genjutsu that don't really fall under the umbrella of hand seal in a traditional sense. And there's two really good examples of this. The first of which would just be a clapping of hands. And you guys have seen this clap of hands in some of the most iconic parts of Naruto. And the reason that it's used for the most iconic moments in Naruto is because a clapping of hands means you're getting serious. So a clapping of hands aren't technically a hand seal. They are required for some of the strongest ninjutsu and fuinjutsu in the entirety of Naruto. Naruto, and they usually symbolize the beginning of a mode change or the ending of a jutsu being pulled off. What do I mean by that? I'll explain. See, we know Naruto and Kurama clap their hands together when they need to summon a massive amount of chakra. In a sense, the clapping of hands movement actually acts a lot like the seal of confrontation for Naruto, as when he does it, he either breaks himself out of genjutsu or begins to gather an insane amount of chakra. However, this is one of the more tame examples the clapping of hands can be used in, as pulling off both Edo Tensei and the Reaper Death Seal require, at the end of all of the hand seals, to clap your hands together. And that's two of the deadliest kinjutsu in the entirety of Naruto. On top of this, Gaara uses it for an attack called Quicksand Water Flow, which is essentially a tsunami of sand that he used against the likes of Oroshiki. And last but definitely not least, this hand seal is also used to pull off Chubaku Tensei. And in all of these circumstances, the user's hands are held together until what they want happens. That is to say that the coffins are summoned, or the Shinigami has grabbed the soul of the person you want them to grab, or you've drowned somebody in a wave of sand. Regardless of what you're trying to do after clapping your hands, you keep them together until it's done. Now, this could be just because it looks really cool, or more likely than not, because the usage of these techniques is so complicated, you have to constantly weave new chakra into them. And by keeping your hands together, you are creating a constant circuit of chakra being molded for this technique. But I said the clapping of hands can also be used for entering new forms. And while we already touched on the fact that Naruto claps his hands together to gather chakra, which usually symbolizes him entering KCM 1 or KCM 2, he's not alone in the clapping of hands symbolizing a new form for him, because both Jiraiya and Hashirama have to clap their hands together to enter their sage modes. Now, the other hand seal that's not really a hand seal and more of just an initiation of a technique is the slapping of the ground. Now, these hand seals, even though they look like they should belong in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, are usually used for either summoning contracts or to initiate earth techniques, which is ironically very Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. But it makes sense. The slamming of your hand into the ground to begin an earth technique or a wood release makes sense because you are funneling your chakra into the ground. Outside of these techniques, there's also variations on the 12 Zodiacs, which are variations of the tiger and ram seals respectively, used for different jutsus in different ways. But these are much less common than things like the Akamichi seal or the Yamanaka seal or the Jin seal. As the Jin seal, which is like the dog seal except the hands are switched and the left palm is facing up, is used in a ton of different jutsus, ironically like the water dragon jutsu, however in the 44 move version of it. And one of the most common seals that we see that definitely doesn't adhere to the 12 Zodiacs is the Yamanaka seal. Now, this is the seal used by the Yamanaka to transfer their mind to other bodies. It can also be used for the mind-body disturbance technique. However, the mind-body disturbance technique seal is actually created like this. Now, the mind-body disturbance technique gives the Yamanaka clan member using it full control over somebody's body without sending their consciousness, by simply launching their chakra into somebody else's nervous system, which allows them to control their muscles. But not all seals are meant to send your chakra out of your body. Some seals are actually used to keep chakra in your body. A great example of this is the Daytime Tiger seal. The Daytime Tiger technique is a taijutsu ability available to those who open up to the 7th gate in the 8th gates, and it manifests sheerly through the use of a high level of taijutsu, essentially a tiger. This technique has the user of Daytime Tiger turning their hand into essentially that of a tiger through the usage of a seal. And this technique allows the user to create a massive air pocket in the shape of a tiger that is controllable and can explode on impact, creating an explosion so large it was able to dwarf the likes of Turtle Island. Now, the hand seal of the tiger created, I can't do it that well. He's actually meant to keep the strength in chakra used to launch this projectile in your body, because the Daytime Tiger construct isn't chakra, it's air pressure. Air pressure shaped by the form of this hand seal. And it's not until this hand seal is released that that massive amount of air pressure is released in a type of explosion. Another great example of something along these lines is the Great Shark Bullet technique, as this technique is ironically used by Kisame. And Kisame, to use this technique, creates a hand seal that looks like a shark in its teeth. However, this technique doesn't use air pressure, it uses water, but it operates in a very similar capacity to Daytime Tiger, except for the fact that when the shark hits you, it actually absorbs your chakra. And any ninjutsu fired at this technique only makes it stronger because the shark absorbs the chakra from the ninjutsu, which is why Daytime Tiger was able to work against it, because Daytime Tiger isn't chakra, it's air pressure. And outside of the manga, there are a ton of movie and or anime only seals that I'm not going to talk about, because it would add another 10 minutes to this video that nobody would care about. Now, the last category of hand seals are hand seals that are slightly controversial. And that's not because they're in anime or movies that I'm not going to talk about them. See, as you can imagine, drawing a bunch of hand seals is difficult, especially for more complicated hand seals like Bird. Even more especially when the page you're drawing on is this big. And therefore, there's a whole category of hand seals that kind of look like Zodiac seals, but also maybe something entirely different, as things like the Akamichi seal that they use to start their partial expansion jutsu look so close to the bird seal that we don't know whether or not it's its own individual seal or literally just the bird seal. On top of this, in Sasuke's battle against Deidara, when he used the hidden snake jutsu, the one that makes your arms into snakes, he used this same seal that the Akamichi might use for partial expansion jutsu, which led everyone to believe that it's a new seal. Which leads everybody to the genuine question, is there a new seal that the Akamichis and Sasuke are using, or is it just really hard to draw fingers? Which leads us to kind of the final point of this video. Listen, hand signs will forever and always be the most iconic part of Naruto. For Dragon Ball Z, you have the Kamehameha or the fusion dance. For Bleach, you have yelling Bankai at the top of your lungs. For One Piece, you have the second gear stance. And for Naruto, we got hand seals. But the reasons that hand seals disappeared from relevancy in Naruto Shippuden and Boruto is because they're complicated. Imagine if hypothetically every single ninjutsu we saw in Naruto had a 10 to 20 hand seal sequence you needed to do before he pulled it off. One, not only would it lead to a lot of ninjas just running around next to each other doing as many hand seals as they can, which isn't super fun to watch. It would essentially make Naruto into who can sign faster. But on top of that, not only would the ninjas have to memorize every single jutsu's hand sequence, so would Kishimoto. And that's something he's really bad at. See, even with the amount of hand seals lessening basically in every single episode of Naruto, there's massive inconsistencies between what jutsus use what hand seals. Almost every single jutsu we've seen require hand seals throughout the duration of Naruto has used different hand seals at different times. Now, this can slightly be explained away with the fact that the more talented you are, the less hand seals you need. But for a lot of these jutsus, we're not even seeing overlap. You would assume that the less hand seals you would need, you would still see one or two from the original Gambit. But throughout the duration of Naruto, we've seen jutsus require things like Ox Monkey Boar to pull off. And then a couple hundred episodes later, it was Rat Dragon Dog. Really testing my Chinese Zodiac knowledge here. Trying to build a story on top of trying to build a convoluted power system that requires a bunch of different, very hard to draw hand seals is a big order. And unless Kishimoto wanted to create 2,000 unique jutsus and then write what hand seals were required for every single one of them, and then keep that open next to him every single time he tried to draw a battle, nerfing hand seals basically out of existence in Naruto Shippuden and Boruto was all but necessary. So yes, are hand seals cool? Absolutely. And they still to this day play a major role in the Boruto universe. However, for the sake of keeping fights interesting, well-paced, and also not breaking Kishimoto's mind, unfortunately, they had to be reduced at a rather drastic level. And well, unfortunately, that makes the ninjas feel less like ninjas, kind of just the way that battle shonen go. They start as something, they end as gods. It's just what happens when you reach 1,000 or so chapters. So to answer the question I posed at the beginning of this video, why are hand seals disappearing? Is it lazy animating, or is it because of an upgrade in power? It's both. But you could say the caveat of requiring less hand seals at a higher level of proficiency is stimulated by lazy animating. But that's it. Everything you guys need to know about hand seals. I did leave a couple of hand seals out because like they're used in one jutsu one time and genuinely who cares? But tell me if I missed anything important and tell me what your favorite hand seal is in the comments below. While you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, hit that noti bell. And ever since I started this page, I started practicing and I'm telling you, I'm nice.